Welcome to Y11 Audio, Ypsilanti's college football podcast. I'm Alex Alvarado. Thank you for listening. This is the official podcast feed for the Ypsilanti 11 Ipsi's college football newsletter. Last week, like I told you, I went to Cleveland, great old Cleveland, everybody's favorite city. It's kind of like Detroit if it were more boring. I went to the great state of Cleveland to hang out at not the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, no, the House of Blues, of course. That's where Media Day was held. It was a pretty cool event. I enjoyed it. I don't honestly have really a bad thing to say about it. It was good setup and all that stuff. It was very different. I don't really like traveling more than I normally would for all that stuff. I'd rather just kind of, not have to worry about traveling for a day, but that's just kind of a personal problem. Still, it was pretty cool. It was good. I got to catch up with a lot of people, got to see, you know, just a lot of new faces. Joe Moorhead, didn't know what he looked like in real life. He's huge. Would beat you up, and I'm assuming you're just a normal average size person, probably bigger than me at 5'10", 200 something. Joe Moorhead would still trash you. He would throw me through a table. God, man, he is huge. Lots of new faces like that. Had a one-on-one with, a lot of people, but one specifically who's, I'm going to have some quotes for you a little bit later on in this show. Toledo Athletic Director Bryan Blair, who is really only in like 3 months, like his third month leading Toledo. It's crazy just like how quick like time goes, and we're like, oh my God, it feels like a lot longer than that. Like if you watch Tiger King, that felt like you watched that in high school at this point. But no, that was, maybe if you were in high school 2 years ago, maybe you did watch it in high school, but really it only came out 2 years ago. It felt like forever though. Before we get into all of that, I just want you to head on over to my newsletter, ypsilanti11.substack.com. That's what it's going to be labeled right now. I'm probably going to upgrade the domain name soon enough, but once I know, you'll know that. Sign up for free updates. A subscription really helps. And you know what? If you know anybody else that loves Maction, loves Eastern Michigan football, or anything else in between, hey, let them know. It really helps me out, and I appreciate it. Before we get into the Media Day content, just want to give a quick recruiting update. It is Monday. It is not even 2 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon yet. The 2023 class is really, really shaping up really well. And I have to give this update because Deion Brown, the running back from St. Louis, had just committed, and he's just now the second highest rated commit in this class. Eastern by 24/7 Sports Composite, total points, I don't care how you want to argue this, whatever, just take it for whatever it's worth, is the second ranked MAC class so far in this cycle, which is really, really good. And it already features Messiah Blair up top, the defensive end from Detroit, MLK High School, teammates with the one and only, I can't even think of his name right now. How is he the one and only? I can't even think of his name right now. Dante Moore. Messiah Blair is the top rated recruit in Eastern's history, which really caught him off guard. When I was talking to him, he was like, yeah, I literally had no idea until afterwards when like Alan Trio's, he didn't say his name specifically, but I'm going to say it for him. When Alan Trio's tweet came out in response to Messiah Blair's commitment, and you find out, oh my God, he's the highest rated recruit in Eastern's program history. That's really, really great. Especially at a position that like really needs like great productivity. Messiah Blair, 6'7", 223. This running back that we're talking about that just committed over the weekend, 5'8", 155. Little guy, a lot of speed. I'm not going to break down like every commit on this podcast and just kind of like give you, an athletic feel for them. I'm not going to like do that really for everybody because, it's just kind of hard to like project these kind of guys. And then I don't really want to spend too much time, covering a whole bunch of commits on this podcast and them not totally stick around forever. It feels like a lot of lost energy, but I will do it. I will put in the work to let you guys know, hey, this is what the upcoming roster changes will look like, and this is kind of what they're going to look like on the field. But I'm not going to make a whole like living out of this thing, so to speak. But Deion Brown committed, really, talented running back with a lot of speed, not a lot of size, but you know what? We'll see what it looks like when it's in green and white next year and years to come. EMU is currently second in the MAC, which would be great. Hey, there's not a lot separating number one and number two. There's really not. It wouldn't take, for the sizable class that Eastern's had, they're not piling on with like a whole bunch of commits like Central is. Not to say Central's doing a bad job, but I'm just telling you what like the rankings kind of look like. Central has more commits, Eastern has fewer, but by composite scores, Eastern's quality of commits is really, really good this year. Like, it's very surprising to see. Like, if you would have told me that this is what the program was going to look like 10 years ago, I wouldn't 100% believe you. Not really, no. But this is a nice update. For Media Day, of course, let's just get this out of the way. The media was polled, and they picked their division winners for the MAC this year, of course, as they do every year. Miami was the runaway favorite for the East with 20 first-place votes. Kent State, who actually won the thing last year and returns a lot of pieces minus the quarterback, but including the head coach, just 3 first-place votes. 5th place in the East, but has 1 first-place vote because whoever did that, I love you and I respect you. Bowling Green. Just throw your media ballot away. I love it. In the West, it's NIU, Toledo, and Central with first-place picks. 11 goes NIU's way, 9 to Toledo, 4 to CMU. Eastern found themselves at 5th, just sandwiched in between Western at 4, Ball State at 6. Not great to open up, but you know what? If you're an Eastern fan, you're used to it. Like, you've seen Eastern be picked 5th in the West. That's an annual tradition. Like, if you're at 4th, like that's crazy. Third, we're breaking out the good tequila. One of the other updates that the MAC announced is that Ford Field will continue to be the MAC's neutral site championship venue. It's going to be the longest stretch that a conference can just agree that one neutral venue will continue to be the conference championship game since 2004. This is a conference that, unlike a lot of leagues and schools and pairings of those two parties, multiple parties throughout the nation have, like, there's a lot of distrust going on nationwide. In the MAC, it's continued alignment, and it has been. So there's not a lot. I'm not surprised that we're seeing this alignment, be continued through on. And so for them to, for fans, it's not a huge deal unless like you're actually participating in it. That, hey, we do have our preferences. Do we want the championship game at home venues? Do we want the championship game at neutral? Yeah, it would be more fun to have them at home. But for a lot of obvious reasons, it kind of has to be at a neutral venue and a big kind of stage like Ford Field that can host a lot of people coming in from out of town, fans, non-fans, working people. Ford Field is a convenient spot for this kind of bus league, and it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways that you can spell out. But it's also just one more thing that this league can say that we agree on in a time where there's nothing anybody can agree on. For the MAC to say, hey, here's one more thing of continued support and continued alignment throughout, and this is nothing new for us. It's kind of good that they can come out and say, hey, we're agreeing on another thing. Yes, it's the same thing as before, but I don't see you guys agreeing on the same thing as before. I just saw the Big Ten just pluck 2 teams from out west. I just saw the SEC pluck Texas and Oklahoma. It's not the biggest deal in the world. And sure, this is going to be the most non-watched, conference championship game of the 10 FBS leagues. Actually, probably not. No, the MAC's going to have more than like the CUSA for sure. But I digress. This is good for the MAC. Just accept it as a good thing. It's not the biggest thing in the world. It is a good thing in the MAC that this is a continued tradition. In a time where continued traditions are a thing of the past. Bryan Blair, he just wanted to kind of have himself introduced at Media Day, so he was kind of having a media tour. I had the first of many one-on-ones scheduled with him, so I'm glad I got into the front of the line so I got the most of his breath. I kind of asked him, hey, why are you at Toledo? I asked him a bunch of things, but I'm only going to have like maybe 4 or 5 minutes worth of interview on this podcast. So I'm just going to get right to it. Here's the first of 2 bits that I have.
Yeah, I'm still learning a lot about it. Like I said, I'm like 2.5 months in, I think, to being here. But I'd been looking at this opportunity probably for 1.5 years, 2 years.
Okay.
Even before it popped open, I think as a young administrator, you're trying to figure out, okay, if I was going to be an AD tomorrow, where would I want that to be? You start sketching out a handful of schools that make some sense. And then you look at, okay, Toledo makes a lot of sense. One, again, close to family. Two, the level of success they've had here historically, I think speaks to what's possible here. If you go to places that have never had an ounce of success, there may be deeper-seated issues at play. Toledo is a place that's always been successful in some way, shape, or form, sometimes higher or lower. So you say, okay, I can build on that. I think the city as a whole is phenomenal. I lived downtown for the first 6 weeks in an apartment by myself. So I was the guy on the little electric scooters, riding around. I'd go get wings for dinner or whatever. Just that whole area downtown on the waterfront is phenomenal. And then I got a chance to experience life outside of downtown and all the little pockets. And just, there's so much to do. There's so much vibrancy to the neighborhoods. And the population and being the biggest city in the MAC, I think comes with a lot of advantages. You take that collectively and you say, okay, we're also 40 minutes from Detroit. So you can tap into Detroit or Ann Arbor or these other areas when needed. I mean, it's just a recipe for success, I believe.
I mean, it's 40 minutes from Detroit, but it's also not too far of a drive to here in Cleveland. It's not too far of a drive really anywhere. It's really like the epicenter of like the bus league. Like the last standing bus league in FBS, right?
And we're literally in the center of the conference footprint, right? I mean, so you got Chicago, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, all these cities around that have so much opportunity. But then, too, from a competitive standpoint, we're in the middle of the MAC footprint. We get more rest than everybody else, and we have less travel than everybody else. That's a huge advantage in our footprint. So I think leveraging some of that, but those are things I didn't know from outside looking in. And now I look at it and say, holy cow. I have one of those moments probably every week where I go, holy cow, I didn't know that. Holy cow, I didn't know this. This is what that's bringing to the table.
So you heard that. Toledo's right there in the middle of the MAC. I don't have to draw out a map, and you probably already know that, but just so you know, it is like right there, just like right there in the middle, just like Brian said. And I kind of, I said it first, but Toledo has its built-in advantages of being in the MAC. And how much of, and this is my question for you listening, how much of Toledo's advantages in the MAC come from being the epicenter of the MAC? And so I want you to think, can Toledo just like, if Toledo ever wanted to change conferences, because Toledo's one of those schools where it's being floated about where, and this isn't like official stuff, this is just fodder, this is just talk on the internet, but Toledo is one of those schools where above a lot of other G5 programs, because of its built-in advantages of being in the MAC, can they just pack its bags, leave the MAC one day, join, say, the AAC, and say, hey, we still have all these built-in advantages, and we're going to do well here? Can Toledo do that?
In 10 years, where is Toledo?
Where physically, or what kind of program are we?
You answer how you want to.
Yeah, I think we're a nationally preeminent G5 program. I want to be the preeminent G5 program. And I mean that, and I don't see any reason why we can't. I think if you look at some of the top, quote-unquote, programs within the G5, top to bottom, and what they've done, but what attributes they have, I think we share many of those attributes. Do they have a history of success? Check, we have that. Are they in a major metro? Check, we have that. Are they close to airport and travel? Check, we have that. Are they in a great recruiting footprint? Check, we have that. There's nothing standing in our way from being the best. We've got to put in the effort, we've got to be creative. Yeah, there's some things we don't have, but a lot of times there's things that I can counter and say we do have this. So I want us in 10 years to look back and say we're the best program, top to bottom, in the group of 5 consideration. And that means going into some tournaments. That means winning bowl games. That means if we expand the playoff, us appearing in that playoff. Those big goals mean a lot to me. And I think in 10 years, I certainly think we get to that stage.
What's the best way for Toledo to get into the playoff? I know like Toledo's got to win all their games and just like cut out the excuses and actually like prove themselves like Cincinnati, sure. But I don't know how sustainable last year really was for like all those G5 schools that you had just mentioned that should make it in that stage. How should Toledo be able to get in there, and like what kind of model of playoff should we have to have a very successful Toledo to get into the playoff?
I think we got to keep on focusing on being the best Toledo possible and building the absolute best football team possible. Some of that stuff's outside our hand. Admittedly, a 14 playoff, us to make that playoff, it's really, really hard. But Cincinnati's showing it can be done. Yeah. And I think Houston, if you look back, had they won their conference championship game, they would have got it done. And so there's been opportunities for G5 programs to make that leap. Has it been often or every year? No. Yeah. But can it happen? Absolutely. Now, if we move forward and we have this opportunity to maybe that they choose to expand the playoff in the coming years. Well, now we're talking a whole new ball game where there's more opportunities to get that access. And then it still comes down, we got to dominate this conference. We got to schedule strategically outside it where we schedule hard enough to beat and get quality wins, but not so hard that we preemptively eliminate ourselves or beat ourselves up for the season that's to come. And make sure we build an infrastructure where regardless of what players and coaches come through, we're always going to have a baseline level of success, so we're not having to rebound. We're just reloading. And I think some of those things are in place. Others I got to get to work on.
Some EMU-sided news that came from Media Day. I'm not going to have audio clips for that. I'm just going to focus on the audio clips from Media Day on other things, which is camp starts tomorrow. But, and it all kind of intertwines, doesn't it? But the preseason depth chart officially came out, so I published that. Some names that aren't on the list. Two big ones that I did ask about and had another post about. Former starters that aren't going to be starting this year. Actually, they're not going to be playing at all this year. Jake Donelon, offensive lineman. Defensive end Mikey Haney, who I really was excited to see play this year because he just plays really nasty. I love his style. They're both going to be missing the season. Jake Donelon, he came back from injury and was, in spring, was getting ready to get ready for the season to be one of the left guard or the right guard again, probably the right guard. But things didn't work out. He just got re-injured, from what I've been told. And, he's just going to be missing the season, unfortunately. So he's going to take an off-field role with the team. Mikey Haney, he went down during the spring. If you were at the spring game, it was wet, and you were like, why are they playing out there? Someone's going to get hurt. And then with 30 seconds left, someone got hurt. And now Mikey Haney, who is a troublemaker for the defensive line, is out for the year. Just really, really stinks. It really would have been great to have Mikey Haney and Jose Ramirez working on both sides of the defensive line. And just really just tearing things up. Both are going to be out for the year. That does a lot for depth, man, especially early on in the year. So, especially in the trenches where you just need guys to stay healthy. Yeah, definitely a big blow on both sides of the ball. So, check out my newsletter. Check out the depth chart. I'll have updates on that, once the depth chart gets updated throughout the year. Like I said, practice starts tomorrow for Eastern. So, even without those guys, we're going to be seeing who's going to be filling in those spots. Yes, there are names already penciled in, but hey, anybody can outperform anybody. It's August. Things get hot. Things get crazy. And whoever ends up starting week 1 against Eastern Kentucky is whoever ends up starting. See, I can speak. But it's going to be a long season. We need whoever starts the front of the year. Those guys need to stay healthy and need to finish because, especially with 2 upperclassmen starters out for the year, it's already just a rough start for Eastern in that regard. Yeah, there's a lot of guys with potential and all that stuff, but I've seen potential before. Anyways, fall camp, it begins tomorrow on Tuesday. Here's what Chris Creighton had to say about it at Media Day.
Yeah, I really like, our football team right now, and camp is going to be really important. We still have some areas that, we have to shore up. Guys have to continue to step up. We need the practice time overall as a football team for sure, but we have what it takes. It's been a while, but I know what it feels like and it tastes like and it looks like, and and I do. I think that we've got the right people, and it's really hard to do, but, we're going to go after being our best, and I think that our best could be pretty good.
He was talking about were just championship games in general, because Eastern has never, ever, ever won a MAC championship game, never even made it to that stage, but overall in his record, he's 0-4 in bowl games. He's probably talking about that too. He needs Eastern to finally get that, man, because Eastern's its most historic win ever is the 1987 Cal Bowl. At least that was the one that's been most prized, especially when I went to college. That was the moment where Eastern just needs to get back to whatever that is. But as a coach before he even got to Eastern, he's 5-3 in the Division III playoffs. So he has had a track record of taking lowly teams into new stages and blah 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 blah, and just having a lot of success that way, right? just needs to get that first one with Eastern. Now that he's essentially 10 years, now he's 9, but I'm going to say 10 years into the program. Eastern's in a much better spot for sure. Just want to get them to the championship stage because it's fun. In getting there, of course, we kind of talked about a little bit about the times. The times being the transfer portal is what it is. And, Creighton is no stranger to just bringing in as many guys that he likes as possible, which means he's also just not saying it, but is saying that he's totally okay with guys leaving the program as long as he's more okay with the guys that he's bringing into the program to replenish the holes, right? And to refill some of the holes, roster spots that are being depleted. Have it be for graduation, transfers, guys just aren't making it onto the field, whatever the case may be. As long as the guys that he's bringing in, he's happy with, hey, it's a good time. It's a good time to manage a program, right? Right?
Yeah, it's it's as things are becoming like more transient. My answer is then just even build a stronger culture.
Yeah.
We want people who want to be here and are like-minded, love football, want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and I think that that's worked out pretty darn well. There's people who want to be a part of it, and you mentioned Taylor Powell, Chase Klein, and Joe Spracio. Those guys are great fits for our program, and they're really good football players. They've been here since January, but it feels like they've been here for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
They're completely ingratiated in our program. And those guys will make an impact on our football team. And, you mentioned we have 2 corners that have both come from junior college.
Yeah.
One got here in January. Yep. And then Keelan came, for this summer. And, it's helpful to be able to, be able and see if somebody's out there that's the right fit and the right spot and all of those things. And so that part has changed in college football for sure. And, we feel as though we've handled it pretty well so far.
So offensively, of course, Taylor Powell is the quarterback. Oh, yeah, we got to start with the quarterback every time we go to offense. But, the team loves him. Obviously, I guess the one thing that Creighton said in this next clip that I'm going to play for you was the accuracy. The accuracy is what really stood out to him and to the team. He gets along with everybody. Of course, I don't think they would bring in any starting quarterback that just was unpleasurable to work with, I guess. I don't think that they would want to bring in a quarterback that would ruin the chemistry, the long-term chemistry of this team just for a few games in a 2022 season. I doubt that would be the case. That being said, they're still really happy with the kind of quarterback that they got out of Taylor Powell. He's playing really well. No, he's not lightning quick. No, he's not going to be Mike Glass. No, he's not going to be Brogan Roback even. But will he be even better than what we saw out of Tyler Wiegers or out of Ben Bryant or any of the other, pocket passing first quarterbacks that we probably saw out of Eastern?
He's not going to beat people with his feet. He's going to beat people with his mind first, and then he's a super accurate quarterback.
Yeah.
Completed 81% of his passes in spring ball, which is as high as I've ever been around.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is just the fit. he just absolutely fits our program and our guys. He loves it. We love him. And so Austin Smith, he was, in the fight and backed up last year, and he's got another year under his belt. And then Cam McCoy came in as a freshman in January, and we've got really high hopes for him as well. But as of right now, Taylor Powell has just had such a great spring that we really don't feel as though there's going to be a drop-off there at all.
Defensively, we did mentioned some injuries that are going to be hurting the team this year, but some guys that are coming back from injury that should help the team this year are both in the defensive backs. Brandon Benson and Corey Hernandez both came from transfers. Corey Hernandez started out at Arkansas, went the JUCO route. Brandon Benson was a 4-year player at Bucknell, cleaned up a lot of damage as a safety. Both of them were missed a lot last year, or all last year. Now that they're back, neither of them are listed as number ones. I don't believe. I'm not looking at the depth chart. You know what? I should do that right now. Let me look at the depth chart for you. So neither are listed as starters at their positions, but they're still leaders nonetheless, especially with like the experience that comes, from each of them. They're both on their last year of college football, so hopefully that they can just, live it up for every snap that they get in 2022, right? So the coach is happy that both of them are back.
Corey is definitely a leader of our corners group, and he had a bad freak injury and has worked his tail off to come back. And so I can't wait to see him in camp because he was not full go at all in spring. And then Brandon Benson, I don't know if you remember this, but he came in from Bucknell,
right,
and in camp sustained an injury, and so wasn't able to play at all last year. We had high hopes for him, even just getting there last summer. We're getting here last summer and playing, and so now he's had a whole year. He's in the program. He knows everybody. He knows our defense, and so we think he's going to be a good player.
Two players that repped Eastern made the trip: defensive end Jose Ramirez and wide receiver Hassan Beydoun, who was absolutely goated. I'll get to that in a little bit, but first I want to get to what Jose had to say. I asked him, "Hey, who's good on your defensive line? Who's going to be good? Who's going to be good? Who's going to be good?" I hear a lot of names, but in your eyes, who's going to impress us this year?
Oh, yeah, we got a lot of young guys, and we got a lot of talent. Somebody who's been impressing me is Peyton. We got Carter, we got Jaden, we got, the whole DN room, whole D-line room, all of them been impressing me and impressing this team. We've been going through these workouts and always challenging each other. If I'm doing one, somebody trying to one-up me. It's just like that competitive nature that we got, and we're trying to take that into the season, too, and take that into the camp.
So my favorite thing that Hassan Beydoun, once upon a time a non-preferred walk-on who had absolutely zero football offers out of high school from anywhere at all, even though he was doing really well for himself at Dearborn. He walked on to Eastern as a non-preferred guy, in 2019, has made a name for himself, of course. I had to ask him, what was like kind of a surreal moment for you in your college football experience, your very unique college football experience. And of course he brought up when he received the scholarship. It was a very surreal moment for him. Not only that, but the next day, so it was Christmas Day 2019 when he received his scholarship. And it was Christmas Day when the whole team was together and they were, having dinner and celebrating together. They were doing like a Secret Santa sort of deal, getting everybody involved. And it was the day before the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit, not too far for Hassan's family to see, or a lot of guys that play for Eastern and the MAC in general, to see. And they were playing Pitt too, so it was regionally cool, right? Got the scholarship. That was in itself a big surprise for him, and a happy moment for him. The next day, took off, had like 100-something receiving yards. He said 400, but I had to fact check that. It wasn't 400, but it was pretty close, I guess. But the best thing Hassan did, I asked him, so which one of your receivers, kind of like I asked Jose, which one of your receivers that you play with is doing really well? And who's going to like make a name for themselves this year? And this guy went ahead and responded to my question with a question. He was like, who has made a name for themselves already? And I was like, well, okay, I'm just going to say the starters. And he's like, okay, well, everybody else. This guy, man, he is amazing. He is already a professional. A non-preferred walk-on turned professional in like a couple years. Love this man.
No, it's definitely humbling. I mean, I just came here, and the thing about Eastern that's so nice is they don't treat scholarship and walk-ons differently. They give everyone the open right to come play. If you can play, you're going to play. So I just came in and proved myself, just had to gain some confidence. I think that was the biggest thing, just playing confident. And then the rest is history.
All right, let's wrap this up with a rundown of a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 names that I want to point out really quickly. Not because they've done anything, but because what they might do starting tomorrow. I'm going to practice. I'll have a dispatch of sorts. I'll let you know what happens. There's a lot of guys I'm looking out for. This over 80 guys on this roster. There's over 100 guys on this roster. There's just so many football players. I have to keep tabs with all of them. But here's 8. Here's 8 that I'm going to keep tabs on, specifically for this reason. They're underclassmen, And the program only grows with underclassmen, right? So these are the 8 names I'm going to circle and say, hey, where are you at in your game? How far can you take this team this year? And what is your long-term potential as a player on this team, right? Like what is your fit and how much can you produce for this team this year? Just kind of 2 general questions that, it can't be answered tomorrow, can't be answered this week, can't be answered this whole month. But I'm still going to keep an eye on because I'm just very curious about you for some specific reasons. Let's start out on offense. Most of these guys are on offense. The quarterback that I'm going to look at is the backup, Austin Smith, the only one who stuck around and didn't transfer out or wasn't cut from their walk-on status. Austin Smith was a speedy guy out of the Atlanta area. He's the quarterback 2 right now. There's no reason to believe that he should, play into quarterback 1 right now, but I am curious to know how close he is. I want to know how close to Taylor Powell's accuracy he is. I want to know how close or if he's a better passer at all than Powell in any regard. Does he have a better deep ball? Does he have a better medium ball, a short ball? How good is he and what can he do on the field right now? What does he look like when he's running with the 2s? And does he lead the 1s just as far? Tight end Max Reese, he's an incoming tight end. He's not built like a traditional tight end because he played a lot of wide receiver in high school, mostly wide receiver, and he's very young, so he's still going to be pretty raw in some regard, but he's still very, very good. Him and his high school team, they did a lot of good in the playoffs, and they have, he played with a lot of P5 guys on his roster, so there was a lot of talent that he was surrounding himself with. So I'm sure that kind of fed into, his desire to get better every day and trying to work out. I'm sure if you're the only guy in a high school locker room who's receiving D1 offers, you're kind of looked at as I'm the shit, I can, I want to work hard and all that stuff, but there's some sort of hominess that's setting in and being comfortable being the top dog. But this guy is surrounded by dogs, so the work ethic I'm sure is already there. When I talked to him on the phone a few months ago, God, when was it? A long time ago, man. It's close to a year now. He was telling me that he was not looking to ride the bench that long, if at all. So can he outperform some of the seniors that are in this tight end group right now? This isn't a position group that's already locked down with this is our returning what's the tight end award? I don't remember what that is. This is our returning John Mackey of the year award watch list guy. There's none of that. Our 2 starters for the past 3 years are both gone, Bryson Cannon and Tom Secotier. So this is one of those positions that's totally up for grabs. And Max Reese is dynamic enough to make big plays downfield with his receiving making abilities. So I wonder if that's going to get him on the field, but I don't know how much of his blocking and how much of his size and his youth is going to keep him off the field. Elijah Jackson Anderson is the most like a Bronson Hill type running back in Eastern's current running back group right now, just based on film alone and my eyes, and that's my observations. And, after Samson Evans, after he's gone, there's not a lot of underclassmen running backs that are, I feel very comfortable in. So this is another incoming freshman out of Grand Blanc, Michigan that I'm pretty excited about. Just kind of want to see where he's at in comparison to everybody else. Receiver Zach Westmoreland, he's already started games, but he's an underclassman still. And he's not one of the top 3 receiving threats right now, but he's pretty damn good. But I'm curious to know how wide is his game that we're just not seeing on game day, because this is a coaching staff that really, really loved it when he committed. They really thought that they got a huge steal from P5 programs with him, because out of high school he had a foot injury that kept a lot of schools away, and Zach Westmoreland ended up going to Northeast Oklahoma A&M. I promise you that's a real place. But they didn't play football his first year because that would be in 2020. And so they canceled football for that year, even though he spent his first semester at a new college, his first college. So he came into Eastern essentially with full eligibility. And so he saw a little bit of the field last year, but not too many. Didn't even have 20 grabs. Would love to see his productivity go up. but I also want to see how they use him, how they try him out, what works with him, what doesn't work with him, what doesn't work with him and the rest of the other receivers too. I'm curious to see what he looks like, in the flood of receivers that they're trying to use. Carson Lee is a incoming offensive lineman from Colorado. He played 5 games over the past 2 years. You got to get big in the trenches, and someone like Carson Lee, he didn't have a ton of offers, but Colorado is a P5 program. Let's give it its respect. Youthful offensive line with some sort of track record, some sort of experience. I'm curious to see what that's worth. Defensively, our last 3 guys that we're going to get to, defensive end Sterling Miles is who I'm going to start with. He's from West Bloomfield. He transfers in from Cincinnati, though. He's got 3 or 4 years left. I'm not looking at my spreadsheet. But Sterling Miles, especially with Mikey Haney out, Sterling Miles, can you step up? You're one of the defensive ends that we're looking at right now. I'm going to pair you with Malik Bogard, too, who was... and he's going to be an incoming freshman. He is an incoming freshman, not going to be. He's already in Eastern. Incoming freshman was the highest rated recruit in Eastern's class last cycle, in the 2022 cycle. So of you guys, who's going to be impressing me, and what will make you guys stand out on the field, and how much you guys got to grow up? Like I said, you're both freshmen. Well, certainly I was sophomore, but you get what I mean. Melvin Swindle is an interior defensive lineman that didn't see the field a lot last year, but I really think he's about to. I think he's really going to we're going to see a lot more of Melvin Swindle Jr. out there. Really highly rated recruit is actually, if we're including Messiah Blair in this current cycle, the 23 cycle, Melvin Swindle is the number 3 rated recruit in Eastern's history too. So it's going to be exciting at one point if everything stays linear and nothing crazy changes, right? To have the number 3 and number 1 recruits of all time across Eastern's defensive line. That's a good recipe for success. That's a good recipe for success. And I don't care if you're Eastern, I don't care if you're Central, I don't care if you're Toledo, I don't care what school you are, Akron, ULM, the Terry Bowden schools. That's a good recipe for success. And that's a very good foundation to be building off of. Justin Jefferson's the last name I'm going to mention here. I kind of want to mention him in conjunction with another linebacker too, Bryson Huddleston, because they both came in during the 2020 cycle. They're both linebackers, and neither of them are starting. I just need to know, okay, so the transfers came in, Joe Sparatio, Chase Klein, they're going to be the number 1 linebackers for Eastern this year because he only played 2, right? And Eastern felt very comfortable bringing them in, letting Tariq Spates jump down into an LB2 role rather than a starter. And Justin Jefferson, likewise, will be another LB2 on the other side. But Bryson Huddleston, he also was in the 2020 cycle that signed with Eastern that year with Jefferson. And this is if you have not looked at the 2020, and why would you, but the 2020 signing class for Eastern, there's a lot of guys that just are not on the team anymore. There's still some hangers on. DJ Smith is still hanging around. He's the number 2 recruit in this class, but he's not even on the depth chart. Rico Small's gone. CJ Parks never made it. Jason Eaton transferred out. David Carter's still around. Mickey Rabelinsky, an offensive tackle, he's still around, but quarterback Baron May's gone. Defensive back Miles McNeil's gone. Hey, there's linebacker Bryson Huddleston. He's still around, but Colion Smith's gone. Xavier Smith's gone. Lucas Luff's gone. Troy Best, he's already gone. There's not a lot of returning guys, especially at the top half of this list. Once we get towards the bottom, we still have some hangers on. But these linebackers, Jefferson and Huddleston, one of those 2 guys have really got to come through because I don't think Eastern wants to live off the portal, especially at linebacker. Maybe sometimes if it only has to fill one of the 2 linebacker spots, sure. But defense is just one of those positions where you really want to get a good one out of high school that stays. You want your defensive quarterback out of high school. And does Eastern have that defensive quarterback? They have their offensive quarterback for sure. But the linebacker, the guy that runs everything in that 4-2-5 defense, do they have that guy that has come through the high school ranks? Or is Eastern just going to be handcuffed to the transfer portal to find good linebackers for the rest of time.